You're listening to ayahuascapodcast.com. Basically, I want to write a book for people that have done ayahuasca a few times and just want to do it better, or people who have never done ayahuasca. So book to motivate people to try it for the first time. Book that kind of teaches you that ayahuasca is for everyone. Of course, not everyone, but almost everyone, but most likely for you, because, there's a lot of people think that it's only for certain kind of people. Educate people how to do it right, avoiding common pitfalls. I wanted to provide most complete, most holistic, most up-to-date, most down-to-earth explanation how ayahuasca healing actually works. So nothing, too woo-woo, but also not too scientific. Stuff that actually works, and get people, motivate them to come and drink ayahuasca. And would be lovely if they come to LaWayra as well. In this episode of Ayahuasca Podcast, I speak to Nick Courtright. Nick is a writer. He's also a CEO and founder of a publishing company. Nick tells us about how his life changed after attending LaWayra ayahuasca retreat, how he quit drinking and ran a marathon. Nick was the one who gave me the idea to write a book, and I'm writing it as we speak. And so we talked to Nick about my book, about what it's all going to be about. And we ask you as audience questions as well to be a participant in it. So it's a really different but really exciting episode, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. This episode is sponsored by LaWayra Ayahuasca Retreat. At LaWayra, we combine affordability, accessibility, and authenticity. LaWayra, connect, heal, grow. Guys, I'm looking forward to hosting you. Hi, guys, and welcome back to Ayahuasca Podcast. As always, with you, the host, Sam Believ. Today, I'm having a conversation with Nick Courtright. Nick is an American poet, educator, and essayist known for his literary work that blends philosophical inquiry with lyrical expression. He has authored several books, including Let It Be Light and The Forgotten World, both of which have been well received in the literary community. His work explores themes such as existence, identity, and the human experience through a meditative and reflective lens. Now you kind of see why we have him on, because very related to the ayahuasca work. And Nick is also founder of and CEO of Atmosphere Press, which is an acclaimed literary hybrid publisher dedicated to authors' rights. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Most importantly, Nick is not just a publisher or just an author. Nick is also one of our previous patients, as we like to call them at LaWayra. So, Nick, tell us a little bit about yourself and what and kind of tie it into what brought you to work with the plant medicine.
Yeah, so for years, even as far back as high school, I was always interested in the fabric of reality. I did speeches for my speech class back in high school about, how everybody saw everything differently, and we were all sort of filtering reality through our own individual lens. So even when I was young, I was, really interested in this idea of what on earth is going on here, right? And then over the course of life, good things, bad things, like having anxiety, reading about philosophy, trying to deal with difficult things in life, such as divorce or being a parent, all of these sort of things, ultimately, led me to try to, find some truth in the world or, have some different experiences. And I'm somebody who travels the world a lot. That's what my most recent poetry collection is about. But really, going to Colombia, trying ayahuasca, I didn't fully know totally what I was getting myself into. I was kind of like, this is going to be an adventure, but I didn't realize that it wasn't just going to be an adventure. It was going to be a great opportunity to process, stuff that I hadn't fully processed, to heal from some things that were problematic in my past. And definitely, it made a big difference for me coming out of it.
So you're a real life poet. That's not often you meet one. and I'm happy you chose LaWayra to come for your ayahuasca experience. And just shortly, what did it do for you? And I know you're coming back in January. What is the next chapter?
Yeah. So like I said, I went there with no like big expectations. Like I remember during the first, word circle, people talking about, it's like, what's your intention? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And I was sort of like, well, like my life's pretty good. I like run my own business. I got a beautiful wife. I've got good kids. Like, I wasn't dealing with any sort of super problematic thing. But then, during the process, I ended up sort of realizing that there were things that I needed to work through, like, for example, my divorce that happened a decade ago, and a lot of like forgiveness mutually, like my relationship with my parents, things like that. And the sort of result coming out of it has really been amazing. Like, for example, I quit drinking. Like I just like stopped. Like I wasn't really drinking a lot before, but I did drink. I was like a normal person, like out there drinking regularly, but just sort of as a side effect of the ayahuasca experience at LaWayra, I just was like, I don't need alcohol anymore. It just wasn't something that I needed. And that sort of also led me towards just a sort of a greater health journey. And this year, like 2 months ago, I ran a marathon. Like, that's insane. That was like never on my radar at all before going to LaWayra. So I was going there to be like, oh, I'm going to like try this drug and I'm going to trip and it's going to be crazy. And then I'm going to tell everybody how crazy it was. I wasn't expecting that it was going to lead me to, not drinking anymore and running a marathon, but that's what it did. So I think it's interesting. And one of the things you said at LaWayra was, that it's not necessarily going to give you, what you want, but it is going to give you what you need. And I really feel like that was kind of the result that I got from it.
That's a really nice side effect you got, and that's actually more common than you would think. People coming, drinking ayahuasca for whatever reason, and then realizing they're not drinking alcohol anymore, which is extremely nice. And what you said about, coming just to experiment and sort of maybe looking for this new experience, kind of new jungle style high, and then finding a lot in it. But however, one of the reasons I want to write a book, and we're gonna talk about it later, what's the topic of this episode all about, is for that, to kind of explain to people what ayahuasca really is and what it can do for you, and how to do it right, whether they come drink it at LaWayra or somewhere else. So I kind of went ahead and shared the little secret, but yeah, this episode of the podcast will be a lot about the book. Nick, when he came to LaWayra and after having his experience, he said, if you ever want to write a book, I'll help you publish it. And back then, I don't think I ever thought about writing a book, but that thought as a parasite festered in my brain. And recently, when Nick messaged me and said he's coming back, I felt like I'm ready to write a book, and I couldn't sleep. The thoughts started coming, the phrases, the parts, and but yeah, Nick, first let's talk about your publishing company, because I know it's not a regular one.
Yeah. So I started back in 2015, Atmosphere Press. Like, I used to be a college professor. That's what I was for a dozen years. I taught all sorts of literature, creative writing, freshman composition, all of that for a dozen years. And then I just started helping writers sort of as a side gig. It was just a little side hustle I had, helping writers, and then, published one book. And it was sort of, interestingly enough, it was about the universe and the meaning of life. That's why the press is called Atmosphere Press. It's sort of started with this very, ethereal, sort of mystical, philosophical sort of perspective. And then it just grew and grew. And now here we are 9 years later. We've published more than 1,200 books across all genres. We're in author sort of forward press. It's all author rights based. So authors keep the rights to their work. Authors are very involved in the process, the design, the editorial, the publicity, all of that, because I knew I wanted it to be something that was ethical, that was straightforward, where authors would, sort of contribute financially to hiring professionals to make their book really awesome. And it was, sort of one of those happy surprises that happens in life, where I wasn't trying to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't trying to be, a big publisher or whatever. It just kind of happened. And I think it's interesting how that sort of really works with an ayahuasca experience, is just like the authenticity of it, the active service part of it, and also, in a sense, like writing a book, publishing a book, it is like a therapeutic process of, taking something that's inside of you and like transforming it into an artifact, and like that is like part of who you are. So I think that that's like a really sort of beautiful experience that, I and my team foster through Atmosphere Press, and then sort of similarly, that same kind of journey of discovery can happen through ayahuasca.
Something interesting you mentioned, which is how you kind of never really planned to start a publishing company. And because of that, you have more authenticity. We kind of call this synchronicity in the medicine space. So same thing happened to me. I never planned to start an ayahuasca retreat. And I think that kind of gives people comfort, because I think if they know it, and if obviously they trust me when I say it, they're kind of like, yeah, it happened to me. It's like you're being led on a certain path. So it's like a higher meaning to it. And then, you never know. Maybe you became a publisher because somebody needs to write a book because it needs to change the world. Not saying it's going to be me, but just an idea. So yeah, it's nice to be guided in life by something bigger than you. It gives you sort of comfort, and that's a lot what you work with through ayahuasca. And when you were here at LaWayra, what made you ask me that question about the book? What made you think? What? Yeah, just tell me.
Yeah, so I think it was just, it was such a, powerful experience, and it was a powerful experience for everybody there. There were 25 people there, and everybody was just like, had their minds blown. And I know that that's happened for many, many people, over the course of time. You look up the Google reviews. It's crazy, right? Not too many places have like better, score than my company, but LaWayra does. So props on that. It was just something where it's like, wow, there's a lot of education to be had here. And in, Western medicine, a lot of times, we're like, using pharmaceuticals to try to help people. We're, not necessarily treating ourselves super well, but doing something at a place like LaWayra where there's medicine is a big part of it, because it, opens up your neural pathways, it increases neuroplasticity, it sort of pulls the blinders off and sort of, helps you confront what it is that's really going on with you. I think that part's amazing. And the fact that you had a business, you were sort of the one who was making this happen for all of these people. It was clear that you had, a lot of experience, and that there was an opportunity here to help, a whole lot of people, if only they sort of understood more what they could get out of this kind of experience.
Definitely, there's a lot of education that needs to be done. And I think that what makes me want to write that book is I see that there's a lot of PhDs or smart people writing about ayahuasca. There's a lot of people that had their own experience that write about ayahuasca, but I don't think there's enough people that have seen transformational experience of thousands of people and guided them through it. And from the point of view of like understanding how to do it properly and what really works, and then write a book. So I guess that's why it makes sense to me. And thank you for giving me that idea, because I'm really excited now to write a book. And as you said, writing a book is this process, this healing process in itself. And as I am slowly scribbling ideas in my notebook, I realize that I'm filling up empty spaces and blanks that I have in my knowledge, I'm doing more research, and I'm kind of creating this more succinct model. So let's switch this interview around from me asking you questions to now you asking me questions. As a publisher, what would you want to know from me in order to make sense whether this book even needs to be written? And then obviously for those who are listening, would really love if after you finish listening to this episode, I'll leave a link in the show notes to a form where you can give me your feedback, because I need to know your feedback, but later on that.
Yeah. I think it's it's just a great topic. And I think one of the things you mentioned is really spot on, is that out there in the current marketplace, there are bunches of books that are written from like more of a medical perspective or like a chemical perspective, right? About like, MAO inhibitors, or whatever. And like that sort of thing. And then there are your firsthand testimonies where people are like, I saw the stars sparkling, or whatever, but the idea that in a sense, you've been a witness to many, like almost in a sense, like a large scale clinical trial, right? Is a really sort of interesting, piece of the puzzle. So I guess one question I have for you is, how would you go about incorporating some of the, transformative things that you've witnessed people experience into the book?
So I've been thinking about that a lot, about how to structure the book. And what I think I would do is start with, just a general explanation of what it is, how it works, just to kind of make people understand that this book is for them. So before I even go into specific stories, and let's say somebody who's reading that book is depressed, but then all of a sudden there's a story about somebody overcoming alcoholism, so they'll be like, boring, that's not for me. So what I would start with is like explain. It would be like before your ayahuasca experience, during your ayahuasca experience, after your ayahuasca experience. So I'm thinking about including 10 to maybe 20 stories in the after ayahuasca experience part. Maybe I'll mention them shortly in the beginning just for motivation's sakes, but kind of go people I interviewed, people that gave us testimonials, people I know personally. We'll even throw in your story there about how you stopped drinking and all the good stuff. So just like firsthand accounts of people overcoming specific issues and telling their stories, because I think people like hearing stories. And obviously the good part is that I have most of them on video or in a podcast format, so that maybe I could smartly include some links so people can go and actually see. But that would definitely be a part of it. But mostly I would, as you say, it's kind of like one-person study, but I would include mostly like a meta-analysis of things. Not because I actually know how to make a meta-analysis, but because, if you ask me a question, my brain gives you an answer because of things I've seen and experienced and heard, and, countless word circles, hundreds, if not thousands of hours of listening to people describing their experiences. So I kind of have that wisdom now, thanks to being there for so long, and I can kind of give people that motivation.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest transformations that you've seen that you think might be a part of the book?
I think number one, depression. Number two, anxiety, addiction, sometimes physical ailments, a lot of times finding direction in life. In LaWayra, we say our motto is connect, heal, grow. So from the healing point of view, everything physical and mental, just so many different stories. I can't even recall them all. And even physical healing, a lot of autoimmune issues, gut issues, skin issues, basically every disease, mental or physical, that starts with emotions. Ayahuasca goes there and somehow massages it out of you. Obviously not ayahuasca itself, with integration as well. And integration would be a big part of the book as well. But not from a theoretical point of view, but from what actually worked for people and for myself included, because I am going through my own journey. And I can attest to many things with the firsthand experience, including depression and lack of direction in life.
Tell me a bit more about integration and how that would feature in the book specifically.
So, obviously, in every retreat, we teach about integration. I have a number of podcast episodes about integration, but if you're that, because integration is sort of one of those overly talked about topics, but in short, integration is how you take your ayahuasca experience and then bring it back to your real life and kind of make them on the same level. So it's not just like, here's my life, here's my ayahuasca experience, two separate things, never connected. It's like how to take core lessons and bring them into your life. But mostly it's about forming habits, actually how to do stuff in such a way that you don't, that you keep doing it. Because integration is, you do your ayahuasca ceremony, ayahuasca retreat for 1 week, and then your integration is the next year before you come. And my question to you, Nick, how was your integration process? Because I think it was, a bit more than a year since you're coming back now?
Yeah, so I was there in January, so it will be like exactly a year, pretty much. And yeah, I think one thing that really helped me a lot was the dieta, was very helpful. Because I had to, quit caffeine and I had to quit alcohol, before coming. And then obviously was not on those things there. And then it was like, when I got out, I was like, I'll just finish out dry January, And by the time January was over, I was just like over it, So I think that, integration starts like almost in a weird way, like before the experience, right? Like ayahuasca works on you before you even do it, right? Because you need to prepare for it, and then, you sort of chart behavior, and then the neuroplasticity is so high that anything that you're sort of setting in motion, like in the immediate aftermath, can really take root. Like I also like quit caffeine, which is like freaking insane, like that I never would have, like I was drinking like multiple cups of coffee when I was like 16, and now I'm in my 40s. I hadn't gone like 2 days without coffee in like literally decades, So I think that was a big part. And, thinking about it, going back and listening to the music, there was like a recording from a session that I was at. That was a really helpful part to sort of like put me back in that place to review the notes that I had written. I do think, it doesn't, it's difficult to make it last forever, right? I think it is like with a lot of things, and that's why I'm going back. It's like getting a booster shot, right? Is really helpful. And this time, I'm planning on like going deeper and like having more intentionality. Like I know some things that I want to get out of it this time. Whereas last time I was sort of, wandering in, like thinking it was just an adventure. So yeah, I think that, integration is an ongoing, lasting process.
Yeah, now you know why you're coming, and hopefully in your preparation for your next visit, you will be maybe reading small parts of the book that I'm writing, and you'll be next level ready. So you will be the patient zero.
Patient zero sounds dangerous, but yeah, I remember, like thinking about LaWayra as sort of like the world's strangest hospital, right? And you do refer to people like as patients, and that's like an interesting way of thinking about it. But like in a sense, if everyone is there to heal, that is an appropriate term.
Everyone's there to heal, whether they know it or not.
Yeah, I didn't know it. Yeah, I was like, they've got a swimming pool, and then, it wasn't necessarily like you're going to like confront some deep stuff, but, that's interesting. So I guess in terms of your book, what sort of a timeline are you thinking of in terms of getting this thing ready?
I would say the sooner the better. I kind of, once I finally get got this clarity that the world needs that book. Now I'm kind of like, yeah, world really needs that book, because I want to write a book for people who are on the verge. I want to write a book that you would want to. It's like, if you already had ayahuasca, I want to write a book that you wish you read before you had your first ayahuasca experience, like that kind of book. So it's a book that answers all your questions and kind of helps you do it right. So I think the sooner the better. I would say I would like to have some kind of manuscript or something readable before January. So let's say this year, which means that you'd be able to read it, not as a publisher, but of course partially, but also as somebody that is going to have an ayahuasca experience. So you'd have an extra motivation. I think you have a lot of books thrown at you that you have to read. This is different, so that you can even use it yourself, and then can give me productive feedback. And then the rest of it depends on you. If you want to publish it, then hopefully 2025 is the year where I have a book.
Yeah, I think it is good, and I think it is helpful, because there are plenty of ayahuasca user guides and stuff like that out there. But I think there are lots of seemingly redundant books about all sorts of topics, but there's always that individual angle. And I think the way that it's done at LaWayra is just a really like fantastic way of approaching it, like thinking about it. It's not overly clinical. It has an element of like Western healing to it, and like community building, but then also, is obviously like very authentic, with a lot of like traditional elements as well. So I think that there's a lot, that can be added, and that can really sort of help people prepare for the experience, and also be useful to them in the aftermath. So what are you going to call it?
Actually, what I'm going to do is just read all the title ideas. So once again, I'm going to make a form in comment section for this podcast episode. So guys, you please go ahead and let me know what you think about the title and about everything else that we're going to share. Here are the possible titles: Reasonable Ayahuasca, the Ayahuasca book, How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Ayahuasca, How to Actually Heal with Ayahuasca, Things I Wish I Knew Before Trying Ayahuasca, Ayahuasca, as an AI, 10 Years of Therapy in 1 Week, Healing with Ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is for everyone. Read this book before you try ayahuasca. Is ayahuasca right for you? Ayahuasca for the first timers. Ayahuasca for normies. Ayahuasca is calling. Ayahuasca is calling you. Actually, the last one came up to me tonight when I couldn't sleep. I have a newborn, but also just my brain keeps going back to the book ideas, and I like this one a lot. What do you think yourself personally?
Of which one? The ayahuasca is calling you?
Ayahuasca is calling, or ayahuasca is calling you?
I think it's good. I think that you have a lot of like good candidates there. I think obviously like seeing the structure of the book, is going to be really important to see like how the parts are broken down, how the chapters are broken down, because you don't want the sort of the tail to wag the dog, right? So the title's going to have to follow it. I think in terms of marketability, like healing with ayahuasca, would probably, get a good bit of traction, because I think that does sort of tap into the idea of like, this is, a methodology that can, have big effects for you. Obviously, that book is not necessarily going to appeal to people who are, going to do ayahuasca as an adventure, right? Or like people who are just like doing it to check some interesting thing off their list, right? They are going to get healed by it, but they aren't necessarily knowing that before they go there. So I think it'll be interesting. It'll be really great to, see what other people's, insights are on, which ones. And that's one thing I know with Atmosphere Press anyway, with any author who works with us. I think probably a good solid like quarter of the books that we end up publishing, the book title changes during the production process because they'll go through editorial meetings and it's like, actually, we want to change that, or we want to throw a subtitle on there. And we work collaboratively with the author. And then, of course, like the marketing department and all of that to try to think about like what is going to be, the best way to position this book to have the type of impact that you want to have.
Definitely. I'm excited learning more about that.
Yeah, it's a whole giant pile. And of course, writing it, I've had 4 of my books published, and writing a book is definitely a labor of love. So if you're wanting to get done by the new year, you're gonna have your work cut out for you. So it's totally doable, and you have a lot of great content. From the podcasts, that's a lot of like golden content from a lot of the testimonials that you have like on your Google reviews, for example. If you could get permission to like mine those for like pieces and, claims that you could use. I mean, there's a lot of content that you can deploy.
Definitely. Any other questions, Nick?
Yeah, I think, one thing I'm curious to understand more about is how do you anticipate that this book will alter the sort of experience of people going to LaWayra?
So the book that I want to write, I just want it to be kind of as an exhaustive guide in a way that it will kind of position you. You will know more about ayahuasca than some of the facilitators. Like the idea is you'll be so ready. So when you come to LaWayra and you, let's say I'm going through my normal introduction and guides, you'll know everything and more. It's basically, this book will give you so much trust with the medicine. It'll give you so much understanding on how to manage your expectations. It will give you understanding how to set your intention. It will give you stories, like everything you need to just be like 100% ready. So it's kind of like book/course in a way, because it will, my plan is to not have anything missed there, anything that comes to using ayahuasca to actually heal and grow as well. So that's what comes to mind when you ask that question.
Yeah, I think it'll be great. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that and to being a part of it. And should I show the tattoo?
Oh yeah, please do.
So there's that.
For those who are watching the video, he's showing a LaWayra logo, the logo of the retreat, same that I have on my t-shirt. So that's really cool to see when people, their experience was so significant that they want to put it on your skin. That's really cool, Nick. You're one of the very few.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like, I don't have like a million tattoos or anything. So it was like, a significant thing, but as soon as I got back, I think it was like part of the integration experience. It's like, remember this, remember this process, remember like sort of the piece that, I came to. And I think it's good. I think it's also like helped me, be a better publisher and better business owner as well. Because now, like, if there are any authors out there, if you end up submitting a manuscript to Atmosphere Press, like, we're going to try to treat you really well. Like, we're going to try to treat you with respect throughout that entire journey. And I think that, those were beliefs that I had before ayahuasca, but ayahuasca just reinforced them more, that we wanted to give to people. We wanted to be more generous. We wanted to be more helpful. We wanted to be more dynamic and inclusive and like thoughtful and sensitive, all of these other things. So it all kind of, works together.
The love and the connection is definitely something ayahuasca teaches you. So I want to ask the people that are listening, what book would you want to read about ayahuasca? would you even want to read a book? Maybe I'm just maybe feel free. I'll give you the completely anonymous form to fill. You can tell me everything you think. Maybe there is no need for a book. Maybe there is too many books already. Maybe there's something else you need. So I'm just gonna tell you shortly what I wanna write a book about, and then you can also tell me which out of those things are interesting and which are not. So basically, I want to write a book for people that have done ayahuasca a few times and just want to do it better, or people who have never done ayahuasca. So book to motivate people to try it for the first time. Book that kind of teaches you that ayahuasca is for everyone. Of course, not everyone, but almost everyone, but most likely for you. And because, there's a lot of people think that it's only for certain kind of people. Educate people how to do it right, avoiding common pitfalls. I wanted to provide most complete, most holistic, most up-to-date, most down-to-earth explanation how ayahuasca healing actually works. So nothing, too woo-woo, but also not too scientific, stuff that actually works. And and of course, hopefully get people, motivate them to come and drink ayahuasca, and would be lovely if they come to LaWayra as well. So that's what I want to write a book about, and you guys can let me know what would you want this book to be about if you think there is a good idea to write a book.
Yeah, and I think the real trouble that you're going to be in, Sam, is when you realize that you need to write more than one.
So in choosing the title, I need to also consider to make sure it rhymes with the future titles.
Well, like you were just saying, ayahuasca is for everyone. That's a great title, right? Also be great, so there's the healing with ayahuasca, could really lean into the sort of trauma focus, and then the ayahuasca is for everyone could lean into the community focus. And there are a lot of different things, because one thing that you almost in a sense want to be careful for is not to try to write the book that's the book for everyone, right? Because then anytime we encounter an author who's like, oh, well, who's your target audience? And they're like, everybody. It's like, well, if it's everybody, it's nobody, right? So it almost makes more sense to have books, multiple shorter books that are focused towards specific, subsections of, your potential audience. But of course, that's a pain in the ass.
And I'm going to write one just for you, Nick. I'm going to call it Ayahuasca for Publishers.
Yeah.
No, but it's a good idea. But yeah, my book it's actually very specific. I know exactly who needs it. And that's basically our target audience, people who come to LaWayra. It's males and females, 25 to 40. People that heard about ayahuasca, they feel the calling. They have some doubts. They want to learn more. First timers, people on the fence, or even people that done ayahuasca once and now they're confused. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do with all this information? How do I actually use it to heal? Because it's not as easy as it seems. So I know exactly what I'm writing a book for. But when it's said about titles and also continuations of the book, as you know, LaWayra's motto is connect, heal, grow. And so if I write a book about healing with ayahuasca, then I can write a book about growing with ayahuasca when I am ready to and when I know more about that. But if I want to write all those books, who's going to run LaWayra for me? So that's another question.
Yeah. Well, that's where when I come down in January, we'll talk about that, the whole being a business owner part, because we're both, business owners and, trying to, run an operation and not be swallowed by it at the same time. That's always a challenge.
Definitely. So, I think it should be clear by now what am I planning to write, and the best part is that now, as soon as this episode is out, the cat is out of the box, so I will have to write a book. Now there's you guys can keep me accountable, and if you come back in January and ask me for my book, and I'll be like, I kind of changed my mind. Feel free to kind of poke me or say something that's not nice, so I don't keep myself accountable. And Nick, talk to us a little bit more about, you said being a business owner, obviously being a publisher, your own family life, how do you do it all together, and how maybe did ayahuasca help you in any way?
Yeah, I think, and my wife has like spoken about this, that like ayahuasca, like I came back more patient, right? And now I'm like, okay, like now I need to level that up. I've got two kids, a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. And, like I'm a good dad, but I want to be a better dad. And I'm a good husband, but I want to be a better husband. And, I'm a good business owner, like with my team of like 45 people working for Atmosphere and all of that, but I want to be better at it, And so I think, all of these things, like they do all require balance, and there are only so many hours in the day, right? So learning how to decide what to prioritize, what to, put my attention into, I think is always a challenge. So I think whenever anybody is just stuck on like the hamster wheel of life, ayahuasca is like definitely a way to stop the hamster wheel. Like you're going to have to like look at things through a new lens and like see a new perspective. And that can give you a lot of like an almost like semi-objective view of your life. And that's not necessarily going to be easy. Like parts of it you're gonna hate, you're gonna be like, oh, I'm screwing this up, or like I'm not doing this part right, but that's gonna like give you the opportunity then to make adjustments, to like get rid of bitterness, to get rid of regret, to sort of start anew and patch things up if there are any damaged elements. So yeah, I'm looking forward to diving deeper this time. And this last time I had no idea that going on this adventure to Colombia was going to make me stop drinking alcohol and make me run a marathon. Like that was not on my radar at all. It wasn't one of my intentions. It wasn't my plan. Like I didn't care about that stuff, right? So I'm really curious to see what sort of unexpected, things sort of come out of this next go round.
Yeah, this is, I love to hear your journey. A couple book titles come to me for you to write, how ayahuasca made me run a marathon. And my wife has spoken, if you ever write an autobiography. So here's some ideas for you. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. So this is, once again, this is why I need to write a book. To one of the chapters is, I have some chapter names already set out. I've actually written a few chapters already, but one of them says, ayahuasca is not a magic bullet. It's like, that's the name of the chapter. So kind of explaining what's the work that will need to be done, and what is that work? Because it's like, yeah, you need to do work. And it's like, what is it? How does it look like? What do I do? And how do I structure it? How do I do enough, but not too much to get burnt out and give up on the whole thing? But how do I not, do nothing at all and just become this kind of person that just drinks ayahuasca and never does the homework? So all of that and more. So I'm really excited. And once again, Nick, thank you for giving me that idea. And yeah, unless you have any more questions for me, we can start wrapping that one up.
Yeah, no, I think that's all good. I just want to sort of gotta, plug the business, of course. So if any of you listeners out there are, writers, you've got your own ideas. If you want to scoop Sam and, write the book, before he does, but if any of you are writers, like definitely check out atmospherepress.com. We've got all sorts of, we give away free books, we give away free interviews. We have a writing residency that we run in Costa Rica. That's really amazing. So we've got all sorts of awesome resources. If you're a writer, come check us out. And yeah, definitely also, if you're listening to this and you haven't, tried the ayahuasca experience yet, I couldn't possibly recommend it more. I recommended it so much that I literally tattooed a thing on my arm so that people would ask me what it was so that I could talk about it. So, that sort of shows how hardcore my endorsement is.
That's a dedication. I have a chapter that I wrote is like how not to lose friends after an ayahuasca retreat.
Yeah, by talking about it endlessly and being annoying.
How to not become a zealot. Interestingly enough, as we speak, it's like it all makes sense. So it's also very necessary, having different story versions for different people. Yeah, man. Thank you for spreading the word. Thank you for your work. I love the idea. If somebody who's listening to this and had the great ayahuasca experience, write a book about your experience. Like, that's great. Like, honestly, I believe ayahuasca is going to go mainstream next 5 to 10 years. And when it happens, your book will become a bestseller. It's even though it seems like there's a lot, I really think there's not enough when the wave of people comes. So, Nick, thank you so much for inspiration. Thank you so much for, just being you, because it makes me feel really happy to see you healthy, happy, fit, and to know that maybe I did a little part in it. So thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Guys, you've been listening to ayahuascapodcast.com. As always, with you, the host, Sam Believ. Please check out the link in the form, link in the podcast description, and fill out the form about questions about the book. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to support us and psychedelic renaissance at large, please follow us and leave us a like wherever it is you're listening. Share this episode with someone who will benefit from this information. Nothing in this podcast is intended as medical advice, and it is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This episode is sponsored by LaWayra Ayahuasca Retreat. At LaWayra, we combine affordability, accessibility, and authenticity. LaWayra, connect, heal, grow. Guys, I'm looking forward to hosting you. Vida de la baila, cura con la guaira, limpia, limpia, taita, vibrando.